Ever wondered why certain students in your gym can effortlessly switch between offense and defense in their leg locking? Well, it comes down to clearly understanding the pros and cons of seated, kneeling, and standing postures, something that most people completely overlook. So in this video, I'm going to show you a brand new, easy to use approach that you can apply to your jiu-jitsu training immediately that will allow you to confidently defend and attack leg locks without any overwhelm.
What I want you guys to think about in terms of any ashigarami, let's look at defense first, which will make the most sense. It doesn't matter what spew he puts me in. If I'm on my ass, this is the least athletic. Actually, I thought of this last night and I'm gonna make you do it. Get off. If we're thinking about the most unathletic position that you can be in, when we're talking about, let's say jumping. Jumping's a pretty athletic activity, right? Let's think about the least athletic position you can jump from. Spewy, sit on your butt. Jump in the air and touch the roof. On your butt, yeah, exactly, right? Very unathletic. Now go on one knee. Jump from there to both feet. Yeah, right, a little bit more athletic. Now from both feet, jump in the air and touch the roof. Don't push the roof in. So we can see quite easily that that is the most athletic position. On one knee is somewhere in between, and on his butt, there's no fucking way. Even if I put his favorite food up there, he's never getting that, right? Does that make sense? So if we're thinking about defending ashigaramis, and he's put me in my most unathletic position, I've got a lot less tools to be able to deal with this while I'm on my butt. So what does that mean? If we're ever on our ass, doesn't matter which ashigarami it is, well, actually, it does matter. If it's 50-50, don't do the Davison Figueiredo, Corey Sandhagen thing that happened on the weekend where you just violently start to come up and blow your own knee apart. That's stupid. So excluding 50-50, the whole idea of what we want to achieve here is getting to a more athletic position so we have more tools to deal with his ashigarami. While I'm on my butt here, I'm in a lot of trouble. As soon as I convert this to being on my knee, I'm in a much better position because he's going to find it a lot harder to control me whilst I'm more athletic. If I go then to a standing position, obviously I need to keep balance for myself, but now I'm in a much better position to start to defeat this, and obviously we're going to look at that at the moment. So this is basically contextualizing where you want to go in terms of your goals, whether he's got you in outside ashi, whether he's got you in inside Sankaku, all those sorts of things. We're always going to be better off dealing, outside, we're always going to be better off dealing with this as we start to build height and get up towards at least a knee, and then get up towards standing. And if you think about the way that we deal with closed guard, it's the exact same thing. If I want to deal with closed guard, locking a body lock underneath him here is about the worst idea you can do. And I'm in my most unathletic position, right? Coming up to a knee is not a bad idea, but it leaves me kind of stuck. The best way to deal with closed guard, double thumb post, get to a standing position, unlock his legs, and now I'm back in an offensive position. I'm not stuck in that position. So the way that we deal with this from a defensive perspective, you always want to have your hands busy and occupied with some part of your training partner. If I just obviously turn away and have none of my hands busy, I just expose my own heel. And you were saying to me, oh yeah, but I got to my knee, but he heel hooked me. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So it's not always just getting to an athletic position, it's how do we do it? So we're always looking at controlling some part of his body, making sure that we're dealing with his legs at the end of the lever. If I grab his knee, he can still reap me here. Yeah, exactly right. So it's an ineffective grip. If I grab his ankle, he tries to reap me, it's pretty effective. The most effective is the very end of the lever at his disgusting feet, where I can go in the arch grip. And now if he tries to move his leg independently of my hand, it's physically impossible. He can kick this away and strip it, yeah, exactly. But when he comes back to here, I'm always gonna be searching for either the ankle or the grip on the arch of the foot here. Then when I wanna get to a standing position, I'm always gonna look to take this secondary grip either by undercross, scoops, getting this out of the way. Now I can stand freely. He doesn't have that much control over my leg. I'm in a very athletic position to start to deal with the last piece of the puzzle, which is the overwrap. I'm gonna start to bring my ankle up underneath as close to his center of base as possible, underneath my whole body. If I'm too far out here, trying to pull is gonna be very difficult. But if I'm not nice and close, I can start to internally rotate, or externally rotate rather, my foot or my knee, and then I can find my heel to the top of his ribs, extract, pull out, and then get to this passing position. So we'll start with that. Get your partner to put your leg into an ashigarami, sit on your butt, and Your only goal here is to occupy your hands with your training partner and then come up to a knee. Get him to try and reap you, get him to try and change his Ashigurami. Yep, exactly right. It doesn't really matter where he goes. This hasn't offered him any more control. Maybe it's a little bit better of an attacking position, but it's not any more control. And it definitely isn't stopping me from standing, which is what I want to achieve ultimately. So when I can come up to a standing position, notice how I'm always trying to find his ankles, at the very base of his foot, or the arch grip, whichever one's available. Obviously in this situation, the arch grip would be available. If he's got it nice and high on my hip and I can't really reach, the ankle is going to be fine. Then I can get to this situation, step up nice and high, extract my leg, and then get into a passing position. Let's give that a go. Once you get to a knee, you obviously have to keep your heel from being exposed the entire time. As you're coming to your knee, grab your training partner's ankles or their feet. Once we're in this situation, you want to look to separate legs. You can do it from a knee. It's going to be better and easier and more effective if you're in a more athletic position, which you already discovered is the standing position. But sometimes when you're trying this against a decent training partner, you come and stand up and he does a good job of off balancing you, and then you're forced back down to a knee. And being on a knee is not problematic. It just means you're in a little bit less athletic position. He has more of an opportunity to finish you than he otherwise would from a standing position. Even if he reaps me, exposes my heel completely, I'm in a very athletic position right now. It's not difficult to assume that I can just keep moving and his ability to control me is going to be a lot smaller than if we were in this situation and he reaps me. Like most people from here are going to try and run away, but the velocity that I can start to use on this leg at the moment, because I'm in a less athletic position, is not as high as if I was here. Right? And it's not difficult to assume that I could pop up to my foot, but you really don't want to play with fire this much and get your leg broken doing so. So if you're on your ass, your whole goal is to start to pop up to a knee, and then your second goal is to start to separate feet. If I don't separate feet from here, I could just run into this battle where I stand, he knocks me back down to a knee, and now we're playing a game just in circles, and we don't really want to do that. So find the base of the foot, find the instep or the ankle. If their leg's going across your center line like this, you might find it difficult to go over the top here, just depending on where his leg is. You might find it a little bit easier to start to come underneath and then start to turn it out. It might be a little bit more robust way to do that for you. Now, once I've separated his legs, staying on one knee offers me nothing. So I'm going to pop up to my feet, extract my foot, and then immediately go into my passing situation. So if you're on your butt, it's getting to a knee. As soon as you get to that knee, you should have your hands occupied by your training partner at the lower end of their body. Separate their feet from the knee, stand, go into passing. Let's give that a go. You should understand what your goal is now in terms of your offensive sequences. So I'm always trying to get him towards his butt. It's in the least athletic position. It's going to give me the most access to dominating this leg, which is obviously what I want because I've built my Ashigurami around it and it's the one that I want to break. I can't break this one because it's not within my legs and I can't control his hip and his ankle and his knee at the same time. And so if you think about the way that you dig on any heel hook, it's internally, or we're rotating their knee to expose their heel and then taking a bite. If I try and do this while Spewy is on a knee, he can always start to put weight into me. He can make it very difficult. He can plant his heel down on the floor and it makes it very hard to do this. If he's on both feet, it's even more difficult to do this because the amount of weight that he can put on this leg means that I can't even get underneath the heel to get a bite on it at all. And now you guys start to realize why it's so superior for you to get to a standing position as well as a knee, as opposed to being on your butt. So when he's on his butt, it's actually really easy for me to put all the necessary things in place to start to get digs from here. So from an offensive perspective, we'll start backwards this time, up towards his feet. My whole goal from here is not to heel hook my training partner. I guarantee if you try this, you'll have very little success. You'll believe that leg locks don't work, and it's a stupid idea. So my whole goal from here is how do I put as much weight into his hip as possible to start to get him down towards the floor. On the way to that, it would be a really good idea to start to think about how I can gain access to his second leg. If I off balance him on one leg, we'll go into the same problem that we had beforehand in terms of the defense, that I can always put him down to a knee, but I can't get him down to his butt most of the time. It's pretty inefficient to start to just put as much weight as possible. His femur's now in the way of me putting him on the floor. So when he's in a standing position, my priority is to get him down to his butt, but the way that we do that is by off balancing him backwards, forwards, so I can gain access to his secondary leg And now it's almost a sure thing that I put him down in a much easier fashion than if I had one leg controlled by itself. If he tries to go to his knee at any stage here, it's very difficult because I've got both legs controlled. Now I can go into immediate offense and start to attack him straight away without worrying about him building back up to a knee. If he tries to build up back up to a knee here and I've got sufficient tension running through his leg, he's going to find it extremely difficult. The reason being is he's got to turn out and further expose his heel to get up towards his knee. By the time that happens, I'll just break his leg. So get your training partner, get him into a standing position, off balance them in two directions. You're going to take them backwards first to get them stepping. You're going to pull your knees to your chest only so that you can gain access to the secondary leg. Don't reach for his quad. It's a very useless grip. Spin for me, Stuart. This way. Thank you. Keep going. Keep going. Thank you. Don't reach for the quad. It's going to do nothing. Watch what happens if I reach for his quad. I put him down. He goes to a knee. Exactly. You're a genius. Good job. Back up. If I reach for his shin, watch what happens if he goes to a knee. Like, he's really flexible. I don't recommend you do that. That's fucking stupid. They're likely just going to go to their ass, right? But reaching for this, sometimes he can step up and around, right? So somewhere in between the knee and the ankle is usually a good idea, but just make sure it's robust enough. Then you can start to pull this leg towards you, put sufficient weight in the secondary leg, and then get them down to bottom position. Then you can start to attack. So go through initially just putting your training partner down from a standing position, and then we'll move on. Let's give that a go. Something we dealt with in the defensive portion is when they're controlling both of your legs, and obviously that limits your ability to put your training partner down and attack them. What happens if you're doing it from an offensive perspective? Let's say we're standing. He starts to separate my legs and he controls both feet. So what we want to try and think about at this point is how we're going to strip these grips. Now, obviously the strong part of Spewey's grip is into his grip, but away from his grip is where his fingers are open. And so I can always reliably pull my heel down towards the floor. If I try and strip this grip by going into it, for obvious reasons, that's not going to work. Similarly, with his grip taken here, all you have to do is look at the grip and think about where does he not have contact with your foot. And so I can strip this way. I obviously wouldn't try and strip it towards his grip because that, well, yeah, okay, maybe it does work. Maybe I'm fucking full of shit. You grip that way because it's not going to be effective, right? And so when they do have grips on our feet, it's not that we're trying to go back to the same ashigarami, it's that it's a good strategy to start to shift into other ashigaramis. So from an offensive perspective, you guys just keep this in your mind. If you can try and off balance them before you do this, that's always a great idea. We're always just looking to have as many points of contact with our training partner as humanly possible. So if I strip out and I now go into X guard, I've got my overwrap, I've got the inside of my left knee, I've got my left shin, I've got my right shoelaces all connected to Spewy here, which is really good for me and bad for him because he's going to have to undo all this. He's going to try and go through the same thing that we talked about in the defensive perspective of separate feet, grab the end of the lever, and whilst he's doing that, I can continually off balance him. Now, if I didn't want to wrestle up from here, I can always shift back out into my original ashigarami, but now you can see that I've dealt with him stripping my feet and I've gone back to my original position where I can now send him backwards, send him forwards, grab his secondary leg, and then start to put him down to a bottom position. So let's say we do this from a Rimiashi this time, just to give you guys some variety. Where in here, Spewy recognizes he's standing, he's in an athletic position, he's doing a good job. What he wants to try and do is separate my feet. Obviously, it's going to be really difficult with my right shin in his taint for him to access that. And so if he strips this grip, okay, no problem. I don't want to take this grip away, or this knee away, because then I'll end up getting mounted, and that's stupid. And sometimes this is quite difficult to strip and then get back towards this, or he keeps his hand close to his hip. Yeah, exactly. So when you get that here, he's just ready to receive it again. What I can do is start to think about off balancing him again. It's always useful to think, even if I don't have my legs around him, I can still off balance him because I've still got this leg in the middle. Can I access his secondary leg? Not quite. Can I kick him forwards to access his secondary leg? Okay, no problem. Now I can start to think about sending him forwards because I've blocked him in both positions. Now I can get his hands to the mat, which if we think about it, one position I didn't speak about, on their butt, least athletic, on their knee, less athletic, feet and hands, less athletic than feet only. So if we can get their hands down to the mat, we can make their legs light. It's very difficult for them to start to move them. And then I can simply fire up back into my next ashigarami. As soon as he stands up, I've got secondary leg control and I can put him back down. So if you can keep them on their ass, best situation. If you can put them back to a knee, good situation. If you can get their hands on the mat, that's going to be better than them standing completely. And then standing completely is probably the worst for you, the best for them. So if you just keep that in your mind as you're going through these, doesn't matter which ashigarami you use, doesn't matter what attacks you funnel into, it's going to be a useful way to just categorize all the complexity of things going on. So let's have a go at switching through a couple different ashigaramis, getting back to secondary leg control, off balancing, and then putting them back to their butt, and we'll wrestle. Let's give that a go.